all political parties. The decision mandating political parties to conduct direct primaries has generated debates across board with views for and against this model.
All right, now the state governors as well and some observers insist the choice of direct or indirect primaries should be that of the political parties, making it optional. Though the National Assembly has the powers to override the veto of the president, but it requires two-thirds majority for this to happen.
And prior to this latest rejection by Mr. President, INEC chairman had endorsed the bill, indicating it presents many positives for democracy in areas of technology, people's participation, anti-corruption, and general transparency. But observers are concerned if this is enough.
They also support the president's rejection of the bill over what they described as self-serving arguments.
And the president's decision and advice to the National Assembly to take another look at the bill places the ball in the court of the lawmakers, leaving them to decide.
This is the first topic for today on Good Morning Nigeria, and we'll also give some attention to the 2022 appropriation bill, which has just been passed by the National Assembly. We had that conversation for yesterday, you know, when the House of Representatives passed the bill. So today we'll be looking at certain intricacies of that bill, as of course, as Senate has just passed it. Yeah. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Kirian Umayo. Thank you for joining us.
And I am Yusuf Nadabo Usman, also joining Kirian to welcome you to the program. Good Morning Nigeria is broadcast on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you live from our studios here in Abuja.
And in our usual tradition, we'll bring you highlights of the morning news and, of course, business news, newspaper review, and others. For now, let's bring in our colleague, Ifama Ojenta, who has the news highlights. Ifama, good morning.
Good morning, Kirian. Good morning, Nadabo. And here is the morning news. A new National Development Plan 2021 to 2015 has been formally launched and presented to the public. It replaces the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan 2017 to 2020, which assisted Nigeria to exit recession in 2017 and sustained modest growth in the economy until the global financial meltdown occasioned by COVID-19. President Muhammadu Buhari performed the ceremony before the meeting of the Federal Executive Council.
Ensure macroeconomic stability, enhance the investment environment, improve on social indicators and living conditions, tackle climate change mitigation, adaptation and resilience strategies, amongst others.
This government, more than any other, have taken deliberate, active steps to include all economic groups and support them more than has ever been done.
Meanwhile, a strong implementation, monitoring and evaluation framework have been approved by the Federal Executive Council towards ensuring that the new National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, with a size of 350 trillion naira, achieves national objectives of a prosperous economy. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is to head the implementation unit of the plan, while 6 governors representing the geopolitical zones of the country form parts of the steering committee, which also comprises members of the private sector. Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, Clement Agba, announced this to newsmen while giving further details on the new National Development Plan.
What is different with this plan is that it provides a mechanism to engage, to empower, and to employ our teaming energetic youths.
Senate has passed the 2022 budget of 17.1 trillion naira, an increment from the 16.3 presented by the executive. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Onkwo reports that the oil benchmark was increased from 57 United States dollar to 62.
To include some other requests made by the city arm of government to take care of some projects of national importance which were not provided in the submitted budget estimate. By the grace of God, we have passed the budget for 2022. And that is a huge, very big milestone, very historic, and this is something that we are supposed to ensure that as long as we are in this Senate, up to our tenure, that we pass the budgets as regularly as we have established.
Meanwhile, President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawal, at plenary says the Senate will address issues raised on the electoral bill by the President when both chambers reconvene in January 2022. President Buhari had cited high cost of conducting direct primaries, security challenges of monitoring the election, violation of citizens' rights and marginalization of smaller political parties as reasons for declining assent to the electoral bill.
Raised, and then as a National Assembly, we address the situation in whatever way is appropriate. I believe that this National Assembly, and particularly this Senate, has done so much.
Over 1 million expired doses of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine have been destroyed by the National Primary Health Care Development Agency and National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, in Abuja. The federal government says the step is taken to demonstrate commitment to ensuring that only safe vaccines are administered on Nigerian citizens.
What we are now doing is still quality control. Although it's destruction, but is that the end of the journey for a product? The product gets into the country or is manufactured in the country, it goes through the supply chain and is monitored or tracked and traced.
We have had engagements with the donor countries, and we've made it clear that now that there's an increasing availability of vaccines, that we will not be accepting vaccines that have short shelf lives.
The identity harmonization policy of government means that the national identity number NIN is requested at every turn, thereby unduly exposing the holder to identity theft and other risks. Well, all that is about to change as the federal government approves NIN tokenization to protect the NIN and other data linked to it.
The tokenization solution is customized to provide data privacy and protection of personal identifiable information and to protect the sanctity and sensitivity of the NIN issued by NIMC to registered individuals.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues after this break with Kirian and Nadabo.
The Ministry of Works and Housing has the responsibility to help improve the quality and the quantity of the road infrastructure assets, which are the roads and the bridges and the highways. At the moment, we have over 13,000 kilometers of road network under repair, reconstruction, or rehabilitation out of the existing 35,000 kilometers of federal road network. These 13,000 kilometers are comprising about 850 different contracts which the ministry superintends across Nigeria. We are fulfilling the mandate of our ministry to expand the connectivity of Nigeria's states and by extension the towns and villages through road transport.
Now everybody knows I'm the man. Enjoy the reward that sharing brings with the Airtel Family Plan. Get bonus talk time, SMS, and data for each family member you share with. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Candidates who are interested in gaining admission into NTA TV College, JOS,
for the 2021-2022 two-year National Innovation Diploma Program are to apply for admission through the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board (JAMB). Courses available for application include film and television production, broadcast journalism, and television engineering technology. Such candidates must have a minimum of 5 O-level credits in relevant subjects including English language and mathematics. For inquiries, please call 0803-079-5335 or 0806-980-9807. Management Announcer.
The 2022 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration is here again. The Nigeria Armed Forces work tirelessly day and night to give us peace to go about our businesses. Some have paid the supreme price. Should we forget the families and loved ones they left behind? No.
I am therefore privileged to honor these veterans who devoted most of their lives, active lives, to securing the nation and the world at large.
So, let's support the Nigerian Armed Forces and their families, corporate organizations, government agencies, parastatals, and individuals. Let's show our love and support for our armed forces. They are our heroes. Buy the Armed Forces Remembrance Emblem and donate into the Armed Forces Remembrance Emblem Appeal account. We love you, and your labor and sacrifice will not be in vain for spilling your blood for us to live.
We have come to the end of another successful year. We wish to appreciate all those who mean so much to us. Our clients, the 3 tiers of government, ministries, departments, and agencies, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties. You are esteemed viewers. Together, we made 2021 great. Together, we shall make 2022 greater. Thank you. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year from all of us at NTA.
Watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Well, next we have newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Achebi, is already here. Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Yusuf. Good to see you again. Good morning, Kyria.
Yeah, Bayo, you're welcome.
Nigeria.
Yeah. And let's get started with the Punch newspaper. We have a couple of 3 of them today.
We
have the
today.
Nation, and then a new entrant there, Al Jazeera, I can see. Let's start with the Punch, sir. Now, above the masthead, we have some stories there, the first of which is at the right top of it. On page 19, you can have the story on verification. Federal government introduces digital token to replace 11-digit NIN, National Identification Number. FG introduces digital token to replace 11-digit NIN. Details of that on page 19. And right below that, there are 3 stories there, one of which is on page 19. Petrol subsidy raises, hits 1.16 trillion naira in 11 months. And on page 19 still, National Assembly to transmit 17 trillion naira budget to Buhari today, says the Senate President. And on page 2, we have 12,547 patients in isolation centers. COVID-19 cases increases by 847,000, rather 847.44%, rather. Details of that on page 2. The big story or the main story on the Punch newspaper here is Electoral Act Amendment Bill. And it says Senate backs down on overriding Buhari, refers bill to constituents. Page 2, that's the details. Get that on page 2. And the writers are, we will consult our constituents during recess. They have a role to play, says Lawan. And the second rider is Buhari rejected bill in order to rig 2023 poll. APC plans to manipulate results, says PDP. Now, getting down to the bottom of the page, but before then, there are this photo story of the destruction of, AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines by the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. That's the photo story there. But right under that, we have federal government declares Monday, Tuesday, January 3 as Yuletide New Year holidays, page 7. And on page 8, prostitution, drug abuse, cholera, COVID-19, fear behind IDP camps closure, says Zulum, Governor of Borno State. On pages 4 and 5, residents protest barricade Katsina Highway as gunmen kill 7. You get details of that on page 4 and 7. At the foot of the page, IU Wike boast of PDP capacity to win 2023 presidency, page 27. And on pages 4 and 5, we have this story on DSS operative kills admission seeker, suspect released after order from above. And finally, on the Punch newspaper, bandits kill Kaduna ex-army officer for resisting order, abduct schools. Details of that on page 5. Kirian?
All right, now let's turn to the Al Jazeera newspaper. The lead story, Senate passes 17.13 trillion naira budget. 3 riders to that, 735.850 billion naira above proposal by presidency to meet reps for decision on electoral bill. Constituents have role to play, according to Lawan. All that on page 8 of Al Jazeera. No hiding place for perpetrators of communal crisis. That's according to the Nasarawa State Governor. That's on page 10. Federal government destroys over 1 million doses of expired AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines. It's also on page 10. Replacement employment as disguised fraud. That's on page 3. Akume loses bid to stop Autumn's 60 billion naira libel suit. That's also on page 10. Customers lament as bank slash withdrawal limits. Page 23. Army promotes 117 senior officers. It's on page 10. Federal government to spend 500 billion on East-West Road. It's on page 11. We also have IID backs power shifts to Cross River South. Let's quickly also look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation, above the name flag of the Nation newspaper, Senate OK's Buhari's 276.8 billion naira environmental request. That's on page 4. 70 traders feared kidnapped on Kaduna Highway. It's on page 6. 41 major generals among 111 elevated officers. NEMA, FRSC begin Operation Eagle Eye in Kano. All right, federal government targets 21 million jobs in 5 years. Below the photo story here, we have Electoral Act, why senators dropped plot against Buhari. Buni, 5 governors pulled last-minute strings. Senate to consult reps on next action. That's on page 28. Let's begin bio now.
Okay. Thank you, Kirian. Let's start with the issue relating to the Senate. Senate, in concurrence yesterday, also passed the 2022 appropriation bill of 17.13 trillion. The Senate president also indicated that the bill will be forwarded for Mr. President for his assent, with expectation that it will be assented to so that the budget can timeously commence implementation from January. He said a timely assent into law will ensure that it meets the implementation by January. The House had earlier on passed the same budget of 17.13 trillion naira. Meanwhile, the federal government yesterday launched the 2021-2025 National Development Plan covering 5 years. The plan envisages investment size of about 348.1 trillion to achieve a set target within the 5 years. 85.7% of the targeted development plan constituting about 298.3 trillion, is expected to be pulled in by the private sector, while the public sector will contribute 14.3%. It is patently deliberate to ensure that the economy is private sector driven. The objective of one of the cardinal objectives of the development plan is to attain a gross domestic product growth rate of 5% on the average within the 5 years. The plan is expected to generate 21 million full-time jobs and lift 35 million people out of poverty within the period of 10 years. The plan implementation unit is headed by the Vice President, and it has the Minister of State for Budget and National Planning as the Vice Chairman. An implementation unit is also to coordinate the activities within the ministry, departments, and agencies, as well as subnationals, that is all the states of the Federation, the private sector, and civil society organizations. The Minister of Budget and National Planning, who presented the plan, says that it provides for implementation of major infrastructure and development projects across the 6 geopolitical zones, and it will open up opportunities in rural areas, and that is the important one, rural areas, so as to achieve what she described as balanced development. The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration, as well as the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, have supervised the destruction of expired AstraZeneca vaccines amounting to about 1,066,000. When the vaccines were offered, it was noted that their shelf life was not quite long, and that was why there was rapidity in administering them. But however, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and the Primary Healthcare Development Agency took the decision to destroy the vaccine at the point they got expired. This is the sacred trust of the 2 agencies and bestowed on them, and they owe Nigeria such a duty, and that was carried out yesterday. In fact, from the pictures of the vaccines that were shown, the date was clear on it, expiry date November 2021. Meanwhile, Omicron virus has now circulated around the world to 106 countries. The World Health Organization says that the new variant is spreading at an unprecedented speed. The Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, says that the vaccine still remains the most effective method against both the Delta and Omicron virus. Dr. Ghebreyesus says that the vast majority of hospitalization and death that are coming from Delta, Omicron, and the COVID-19 virus is from death of unvaccinated people and not in the unboosted people. He says specifically that blanket booster program likely to prolong the pandemic. What can help end the pandemic is getting 40% of people across the world to get at least their first vaccination. And sadly, less than 40% of the people on the continent of Africa have not been vaccinated. So if you vaccinate 167 developed countries, they are safe, they have gotten their full, they are getting booster doses, and part of the world are not vaccinated, the tendency is that the pandemic will still be ravaging, and it will find its way across the world.
That even reminds me of, the visit of Bill Clinton sometimes in 2006 or thereabout to Nigeria, when he said that it's airport mosquito. You can have, mosquito-free countries all over the world. It's the section of the tropics where we have them. But once you can travel and you can move at least to these tropics, you can get them even while returning at the airport, which means it's normal. So like the president says, Kira, that nobody is safe until everybody is safe. So everybody should be, vaccinated and, of course, boosted in coats.
But the critical point now, we are in the celebration period of mass gathering. Therefore, the pharmaceutical measures, non-pharmaceutical measures, must be strictly adhered to. Washing of hands, wearing of masks, and observing social distances. Because there is something going on in social media now, identifying some of the symptoms of watery eyes, cough, sneezing, some as the mild symptoms that should not be taken for granted.
Well, I don't know. The irony of the whole situation concerning vaccination, is that Africa as a continent, relies on donor vaccines donated by the Western world, and that being the case, of course, you need to have to wait until it gets to you. But one other thing is the fact that the vaccination, yes, is efficacious, yet it does not mean that you will not get the virus even being vaccinated. That's
no, you see, initially, countries paid money to buy vaccines. Nigeria paid money to buy vaccines. South Africa voted millions to buy vaccines. But there was vaccine nationalism. Nations were not ready to sell vaccines until they were sure their nationals were covered. So there was scarcity of vaccines.
Well, even when they have enough to at least go around for a while, and some are going, and there's going to be some remnants for sure that may expire in some few months. Just like what happened
in fact, most
to the
of
case
what
in Nigeria
they
here.
Donated.
The one being, destroyed or have been destroyed yesterday, or the day before yesterday by, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. These are the kind of, vaccines that were
that was the indication that was given.
But to be fair to some countries, and most countries in Africa, they really pay.
They paid.
And they pay ahead. But these developed countries where these vaccines have been produced normally hold it until when they get enough before they now even give you the ones you asked or the ones you bought.
Most of these nations that donated vaccines, they had to donate those vaccines. They realized that the shelf life of the vaccines were getting closer to expiration. In fact, most of the AstraZeneca vaccines Nigeria first got came from the Serum Institute from India. That had the patent to produce it on behalf of the patent owner.
Well, what does it teach us? It teaches us that it is high time we began to plan on having our own vaccination plants in the country. Because if you have an established vaccination plant in Nigeria, for instance, some of those laboratories could come in here, as it happened in India, to come and produce in Nigeria.
The good news here is that the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration has met all the criteria for vaccine production in Nigeria. So what is left now, all the scientific requirements have been gradually met by the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration. And also, the Director General of World Trade Organization has also lended her voice, encouraging nations to come and invest in Africa.
Yeah, investment is key to that, because vaccination is not, it requires a very sophisticated and complex kind of laboratory for you to get that done properly. And I'm not seeing that yet in Nigeria. As, yes, they could have gotten to a level where perhaps we can satisfy all the requirements for it, but yet you need to have the infrastructure for it to be possible. Right, so that's the only way out.
Yes. On this point of crime and criminality, bandits have again attacked Kwakwari village in Faskari local government of Katsina State. And gruesomely, a man was locked up in his car and burnt alive. You recall just about 2 weeks ago, a similar incident happened where passengers who were traveling in the bus were shot at, the bus somersaulted, and they set them ablaze in the bus.
And
in fact,
72 others feared kidnapped on Kaduna Highway. That was about
yes,
2
that
days
also
ago,
happened
2 days ago.
just on Wednesday, about 11 a.m. On Kaduna Bireniguari Road. This is between Buruku and getting closer to between Udawa and Buruku. They just stopped chains of vehicles, marched the people into the forest. In fact, the majority of them were traders who were heading to Kano to go and buy goods. It was their relations who called them that found out that the phone called the police to them were answered by bandits. And that's how they knew that they had been actually abducted and pushed into the... But the security outfit in Kaduna are already on the trail of the criminals.
Well, this Utah period is a celebration period, and I think the security operatives should, of course, ramp up their activities to ensure that people get to their various destinations safely this time around. Because most of us are traveling, right? So, I mean, if you're traveling to any part of the country, you can never be sure of your safety, right, until you get to your destination. It's just that it's more felt in the northern part of the country.
They are notorious highways that are known for that. And I think because of the national alert by all the security agencies, those black spots have been identified by way of intelligence and monitoring. They should be able to help
and I think,
to make travel by Nigerians necessary.
I think we've really lost our humanity. I've just been pondering and thinking over this issue. Get people burnt in a car, push you in, lock it, ban you, and you that did that is standing by watching, not even disappearing. When you kill, you shoot a gun, fine, at least it's just for a moment. But looking at that life getting burnt, and then you think you're still alive, you won't die. I mean, it calls for all of us to look at this issue from a very, very serious point of view.
Yes, I agree.
And that is to accept the fact that we're all human beings and nobody has come here to stay permanently. Just like you kill, you too is going to die one day. Exactly. So I think we should look at that. And we should also, as a matter of fact, use this Unitard period to soberly reflect on these problems in this country and fervently pray seriously against these issues, because these are times for prayers, and these are times when, God really will accept them. Yeah.
All right. But it's not far-fetched. When you have a situation that there is massive intrusion of drugs and criminals don't act just with open-mindedness, they are most of the time under the influence of drugs. They don't know what they are doing.
Well, they are organized as far as the
organized criminality.
They are very organized. Whether they take drugs or not, they are properly organized. That's why they can hold people in the bush for upwards of 3 months, 5 months, as the case may be. Right. The most important thing, as Nadabo said, is that look, I mean, time has come for us to do a rethink and find a better way to stop this menace. Bayo, is on this note that we conclude this edition of Newspaper Review. We'd like to thank you for your analysis. We hope to see you again tomorrow for more on Good Morning Nigeria. Well, thank you for staying with us up to this moment on the program. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, of course, we've introduced two major topics for conversation this morning. First is the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, and of course, the budget that has just been passed by the Senate yesterday. Stay with us.
Season's greetings, Abuja. It is that time of the year again when we celebrate and merry for seeing yet another year. We like to say a big thank you to all our taxpayers in the FCT for the opportunity to serve you throughout the year. And we look forward to working with you in the new year as partners in building the FCT of our dream. Merry Christmas and a prosperous new year from all of us at FCT Internal Revenue Service. FCT IRS, it pays to pay your tax.
The NOA, for example, has succeeded a great deal in sensitization during the pandemic, and we have found the community mobilization officers most effective in the sensitization and in the advocacy campaigns, creating awareness on the coronavirus pandemic. We have done this through the production of jingles, which were very widely distributed in different languages, in English, in Hausa, in Yoruba, in Igbo, in Tiv, in Igala, in Kanuri, in Fulfulde, in Ijo, in Isoko, in Bini. In talk of any other language you can think of, we had translated sensitization messages.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
This present government has done a lot on the train modernization. They came in and completed the Abuja-Kaduna, and we have 9 stations there, 5 stopping stations and 4 crossing stations, making 9. And when we started in 2016, we started with 2 trips, then we later moved on to 8 trips. And we are talking about moving to 14 trips a day, and we have been able to send 10 DMUs, 10 coaches, and 2 locomotives new. We have 12 stations on the Takbere line. It's about 312 kilometer length of track, and it's over 35 years old. And the government came and took it up, finished the track, built modern stationing, and the stations are finished. Working on the signaling. We all hope to start the commercial operation by the end of September.
Well, good morning. Nigeria is reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. Before we begin our conversation on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, there is Joseph Watson with the background to set the tone for the discussion.
The much-anticipated Electoral Bill 2021 will for sure have to wait longer if it will eventually see the light of the day. This is following the president's decline to assent the bill, raising concern over high costs of conducting direct primaries, the security challenges of monitoring the exercise, violation of citizens' rights, marginalization of political parties, likely limitations and manipulation of the exercise. For the president, it is better to allow each political party to determine its mode of choosing standard bearer for elections. He wrote the National Assembly asking them to take another look at the issues raised.
The conduct of direct primaries across the 8,809 wards across the length and breadth of the country will lead to a significant spike in the cost of conducting primary elections by parties, as well as increase in the cost of monitoring such elections by INEC.
In addition to increased costs identified above, conducting and monitoring primary elections across 8,809 wards will pose huge security challenges, as the security agencies will also be overstretched.
But before the president rejected the bill, there was bone of contention between the federal legislators and governors, with the letter storming Aso Villa, urging President Muhammadu Buhari to decline assent, saying parties should be at liberty to select any mode of conducting primaries as stipulated by their constitution. The bill is now back on the table of the National Assembly, with the legislators hoping to address the issues soon.
So that we look at the issues raised, and then as a National Assembly, we address the situation in whatever way is appropriate. I believe that this National Assembly, and particularly the Senate, has done so much.
The National Assembly has the chance to override the veto of the president, but this can only be done through the 2/3 majority. The questions on the minds of many are, will the present lawmakers override the president? Is the nation missing another chance for electoral reform before the 2023 general election? How tangible are the contentious issues, and what should be done? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will give perspectives to these questions soon.
And seated already here in the studio for the discussion. First, we have Senator Abubakar Omar Gada. Senator Gada was a member of the 6th Senate. You're welcome to the program.
Good morning, Nigeria.
And of course, a regular on this show, whenever we have election matters, we have Oluwole Osaze Uzi, former INEC director, legal practitioner, and expert on election matters. You're welcome, sir.
Good morning, thank you.
We also have here in the studio Senusi Musa, legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. We're glad to have you join us this morning on our show.
Good morning, gentlemen.
All right.
Okay, gentlemen, there is no gainsaying the fact that elections are critical to democracy, and of course, they play a very important role in the process itself, and that is why we can now say why the Electoral Act amendment has been taking so many dimensions since 2018. Let me start with the Senator Abubakar Umar Gada. The president withheld his assent, returned it to you. How did you receive that action of the president?
This is constitutional. Yeah. President has the right to assent to any law presented to him by National Assembly, and it is what is envisaged in the art of democracy, because he is governed by what he considers critical national interest. And also the National Assembly, with due respect, will also put together what they consider is the majority views in any particular matter, for that matter. So the president has the full right to hold his assent.
And for the reasons he, put forward, talking about, the issue of the high cost of indirect primaries, which is the real bone of contention, because most of the issues, revolve around this, talking about the high cost, talking about insecurity, talking about transparency, talking about other issues surrounding that. The Senate and the National Assembly in general should have at least thought twice about this before accepting it. Now, do you see the possibility of this, being amended, even though the National Assembly is thinking about going back to the constituents to really let them talk to you and then see what you can do by that one?
You see, the beauty of democracy is by aggregation, a product of consultations. And then everybody is governed by the sentiment he is carrying. And he will put in it what he may view as the merit of his argument. And the good thing about it, people as individuals and groups have the right to their opinion. And also those who canvass otherwise equally have the same right. So if in the situation as we have it, that the president was held his assent and the National Assembly have to, in the context of the national interest, look at what has been put to them as reasons. If these reasons are cogent and verifiable, it should appeal to common sense to accept that, yes, we would have, because nobody has the collective or manipulation of wisdom. And no matter what we do, at a point in time, something will come up that will improve the quality of the earlier judgment and then make it supreme when it comes to possible application. So it is in these realms, in this context, that I think the National Assembly, like you rightly put it, will go back to their constituencies, present back the reasons given by the Mr. President. They say, gentlemen, this is what we have before us, and this is what we did, and then where do we go from here? Then another, and that is why the process of incremental review of constitutions, amendment of views as it comes, is part of life. And then in this context, is part of our own nation building. And in the same talk, is part of our own democratic experiments and evolution. So these are normal. What is important is how they are managed.
All right, thank you. Let's now go to Oluwole Osaze Uzi, who is an election expert. In fact, you've garnered experience over the years, being a former director of voter education and publicity with INEC. One of the reasons that the president gave was the fact that it would be cumbersome for INEC, to monitor these primary elections. He also talked about violation of citizens' rights. You're also a lawyer. You can come from that perspective as well. And marginalization of smaller parties. We also mentioned the cost and of course security challenges. In your view, are these reasons cogent enough to deny assent to this bill, which has been passed by the National Assembly?
Thank you, Karen. Well, if I were president of Nigeria, I may not have put my refusal to grant assent on those, predicated on those reasons. But it is the exclusive preserve of the president to decide, especially after receiving advice, whether he will give his assent or he will not give his assent. The Constitution does not spell out asking that it should be justifiable. He doesn't have to explain to anybody why he's refusing assent. All he has to tell Parliament is say, I decline assent on this bill because of this, that, which he has done. There are very weighty issues in some of those reasons he has given. Some others I am not so sure of, because although the letter was long, it's not sufficiently addressed some of those issues. I don't see how it's a breach of citizens' rights, quite honestly. I personally don't see how it is a breach of those rights. First of all, not every citizen is a member of a political party. Being a member of a political party is a question of choice. And when you choose to belong to a political party, it is presumed that you have read the Constitution and you agree to be bound by the terms of the Constitution. If enough party members feel that those terms are not favorable, then they will amend their Constitution. The Constitution of Nigeria gives liberty to the political parties to amend their Constitution or any articles of association at any time. Security challenges are there, no doubt, we cannot wave that away, but it will stretch INEC and its capability to perform its monitoring role. All those things are there. But INEC conducts elections, as at last time, 119, almost 120,000 polling units. So if you can conduct, not just monitor, conduct elections in well over 160,000 polling units now, then it can monitor elections. But it comes with certain consequences. It cannot do so with its own staff. So just like general elections, it probably has to hire ad hoc personnel. It has to train them. There are cost implications for that. It's direct primary is a very expensive form of democracy, internal party democracy, both for the political parties, for the aspirants who have to, even if in a presidential election, there are 8,809 wards. If elections will be conducted in every ward, then it probably has to have agents in all those wards. There are 18 political parties. So multiply 18 by 8,809, you'll see the number of venues that the commission has to go to. But parties might decide, no, okay, we're not going to do that. We'll just do it in the local government headquarters, which is 774. But then again, a lot of members who are far away from the local government headquarters will not be able to participate effectively, except possibly you leverage on technology or other means. So whatever system you take, it's got. National Conscience Party, which is one of the smaller parties, by the way, used direct primaries. All it did is convene in, I think it was on Nikon Stadium in Lagos then, and did their primaries. Now, that is good. It afforded every member opportunity of coming to vote. But did it really afford them? Can somebody come from Sokoto, from Bayelsa, from everywhere, just to come to one central location? What are the cost implications for that person? If he doesn't have resources, is another party member or who's interested in the results going to sponsor that person? So those are the issues. Don't know that has to be in every ward, but the least possibly, and looking at, that should be done in 8,809 wards across the country. There are pros and there are cons in this whole business.
Oh, thank you, Osaze. Sunusi Musa, really want to hear views on this, as been asked by my colleague here. But before we do that, let's welcome Dr. Leonard Nzenwa, the immediate past IPAC chairman. It's a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Leonard Nzenwa. Oh, he has disappeared again, but we're waiting for that. Whenever he comes up, we're going to really engage him more on this issue. Sunusi, as I was saying, could you please respond to this issue of the reasons why the president, declined accent? How do you see it? What's your take on that?
Yes, thank you. The former director
in the beginning said that he did not agree with the president that it is a breach of the rights of the citizen. While explaining his point, eventually ended up agreeing with the president because one, what are those breaching the rights of the president? In as much as we agree that the Constitution has given every Nigerian the right to belong to a political party. And also that same Constitution under Section 222 of thereof, it specifies that each political party will deposit a copy of its Constitution with INEC. It went further to say that if it make amendment to that Constitution, it will also deposit that amendment with INEC. Okay, when you look at this, it clearly shows that the citizen have an absolute right to belong to a political party. And after belonging to a political party, they have the right in that political party to come up with a constitution the way they want to run the affairs of their political party, including choosing of candidates. Okay, now, can we really say that by the provision of Section 228 of the Constitution, which gives National Assembly power to legislate on issues of political party, will the extent of that legislative powers be said to have extended to clearly limiting the system of the primary election to produce candidate? With all respect to my understanding, no. Because if that is the intendment of the Constitution, in Section 222, it would have stated where it said that the constitution of the party must be subject to an act of National Assembly. It has not said that. So while now we have an Electoral Act, I think under Section 87, that says parties can do direct or indirect primaries, I quite agree that to some extent conform with the powers of the National Assembly under Section 228, which is also arguable because in as much as the courts have variously interpreted the fact that parties, issue of political parties, even the court cannot interfere. Why will the legislature now come with a law saying that a party must conduct a primaries for it to produce a candidate? If the parties, in their constitution, they said that it is the leaders of the party that will come together and present a candidate, so be it. So these are the issues that for me, I think, in my own understanding, the extent of the legislative powers of the National Assembly has not extended to limiting the choice of the people. The argument that is being made is the issue of saying that they are trying to see that they whittle down the tyranny of the governors. That we should be careful. In trying to fight the tyranny of the governors, then we should not also come with a legislative tyranny. Because, look, if being a member of a political party is a choice, and after all, that is why being chosen as a candidate of political party is not final. That the people, the general people who are not members of the political party will have a chance during the main election to reject or accept the candidate put forward by a political party. So if the governors decide to trample on the right of the members of the political party or a popular candidate, they refuse to field him, there will be election day that they will have the power to do that. So I think this for me, this is how I see it. And on the issue of the National Assembly overriding the veto of the president and saying that they want to go back to their constituencies, I think Section 58 of 5 has been clearly interpreted by the court in the case of National Assembly against the president. So in that case, clearly the process of overriding the veto of the president, and coincidentally, this is a case that has to do with the Electoral Act 2006, which the National Assembly override the veto of the president that time, and eventually the court said that the process followed was unconstitutional. Because if you read Section 58 sub 5, I think it says that when the bill is again passed, Now, the court interpreted in the case of National Assembly against the president and the case of Tijani against Adamawa State House of Assembly, it has interpreted what a pass again means. It says it has to go the same legislative process. And it is in that process, I think, in the case of National Assembly against the president, that the Court of Appeal say, yes, the president in refusing to assent to a bill will give his reason. And this is why the Constitution said the bill shall be passed again. So it is in the process of passing the bill again where it will go first reading, second reading, public hearing, before third reading. That those reasons the president stated will be considered and the public will be given the opportunity to come and oppose or support those views. Then it is only when that is followed that in the first reading, the bill is passed by 2/3 majority, second reading passed by 2/3 majority, then it will go to public hearing. After that, when the report is back, third reading, it is passed by 2/3 majority. Then we can say that the provision of Section 258 sub 5 is complied with in the exercise of the powers of the National Assembly to do that. But by and large, for me, I said it, in fact, I had intention, had the president signed the bill, to challenge the bill at the court, because for me, my understanding of the extent of the legislative powers over political parties under Section 228 does not extend to limiting the choice of political parties.
All right, we'll return to you because you raised some very pertinent issues backed by the Constitution, because it has opened up other intricacies of this very debacle of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Right now, we have other guests back on the line, Dr. Leonard Nzenwa, immediate past IPAC chairman. Once again, it's a pleasure to have you join us this morning on the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me also.
All right, I think, yes, we have a clearer signals right now. Well, you may have listened to the other speakers, and the issue is on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which, of course, the President denied assent to and retransmitted to the National Assembly for them to, of course, carry out other conferencing to look at the issues that he raised. What is your take on that?
Okay. I'll be speaking specifically with one particular cap now as chairman of the political party in Nigeria, and also a leader of a body of political parties in this country. We did say from the beginning that that particular bill, for one particular reason, did not sit very well with the political parties. We maintained that it was an afterthought that was plotted to smoke out younger political parties from the political ecosystem. We were very clear that that afterthought was orchestrated by one political party, specifically the APC. It was an internal problem in that political party that now got out of that within that arena and began to affect every area. Of course, we know the quick wins we won, the quick wins we picked up with the electronic transmission of results. We did warn that Nigerians should not be hippie about that particular gain at that particular time, that we said that something might happen. And that thing we prophetically stated was that we see moves to see how they can frustrate this particular bill from not being signed by the president. And that was that insertion of direct primary. Now, for us, we now see why the president said he is not so keen or not interested in signing and returning it back to the National Assembly. One of the reasons he gave was the high cost of conducting direct primaries. The other reason he gave is also security challenges of monitoring the elections. Another reason he gave is also violation of citizens' rights. And the other final reason he gave was marginalization of small political parties, which also align with what we said from the beginning. Now, we all do know that direct primary is what I will describe as politically aspirational desiderata. Is something we look forward to get in future. But bringing it now is like throwing spanner into the work. And so we cautioned and we stated that it is not going to be, the president most likely might not sign this bill. I remember I was in your studio, I talked about it, I said, I see this bill going nowhere, and here we are today. What is the way forward? The way forward is that particular aspect of this bill that has to do with direct primary has got to be deleted, or we get it back to where it was before, where the political parties are empowered to either decide to hold the elections, either direct or indirectly. That is the way it is done. People sit outside, they do not understand the challenges political parties face in this country. We see every time they say there is no democracy. But we look at, do we now begin to go back to the antennial model of democracy where direct primary operates? No. What we have seen across the globe is a mix of the delegate system, collegiate system, and a little bit of direct primary. An instance where we have in this country, I don't think we've gotten to that point. We have highly immature political system, and we have a very combustible negative energy within the political system. We've seen it over time, and if we had gone this way of the direct primary, the litigations we will have will be enormous. 2, political parties as we speak are struggling to find out how they can get very credible members. What we have is stomach infrastructure members that move from one political party to the other based on the need of time and what they can get over time. We need to build this culture. We need to build trust around this system. It is not now that we can go into direct primaries. We've done so well with direct primary, with indirect primary. Apart from the two major political parties, or the two older political parties they claim they say they are, we've not had situations where the younger political parties are having very, very intense acrimony around their primaries. It's just basically due to political parties, and we understand why it's so. And so for us, I want to commend Mr. President for doing this. He has given it back to the National Assembly. Let them look at it and yank off that particular section and get it back to Mr. President for him to sign. That's my position, and that is what majority of political parties in Nigeria are standing for.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Leon Nziwa. Senator Abubakar Umar, let's have your reaction on this. The issues have been there much earlier, before even the president refused to, give his assent. I can remember here on this program, there was a time we discussed this very issue, and we talked about one of the participants, raised the issue of the bigger parties trying to swallow the smaller parties in that regard by trying to insist on some of these provisions like the indirect primaries and some other issues relating to that. Now, with these issues, I can see on this very issue, right here on this program, we've been divided into, equal parts, 2 against 2. Now, how would you react to, Leon Nziwa's, stand that political parties, especially the major ones, are trying to consume the smaller ones, and of course, litigations would be there all over if this bill had gone in?
You see, let me start by saying that the reasons as advanced by Mr. President, each one of them is weighty, cogent, and verifiable. So each one of them can even stand as enough reason to withhold assent. But for him to even put forward all those reasons that are verifiable, I think it goes a very long extent to show the quality of the advice given to him, I must admit it. Right. Secondly, my brother, the insider of INEC, and then the now legal practitioner have said it all. You see, the issue of monitoring by INEC in itself is a fundamental issue, because for you to ascertain the integrity of a process you are obligated to monitor, you must be as detailed as the process itself. So the question of is like holding national elections by major political parties, and by aggregation, other smaller ones, when they are holding, is like you are now repeating national elections. Which infrastructure are you going to use? Exactly. How are you going to monitor that reality? So I think the National Assembly, with due respect, probably submitted to sentiment or to emotions. And now they have seen clearly the limitations of their collective wisdoms has come to be against the fundamental rights of citizenry. And where the fundamental right is compromised or is at risk, every other thing must be put aside to protect those rights. Exactly. We have, with due respect, already a Supreme Court judgment, which by itself is a law, that says the political party have the right to select, nominate, or appoint their candidates. And if you have all these extant rules and provisions, there's no gainsaying that the bill as passed was very unpopular. It's only popular to the extent of the sentiments of the members who, out of fear of the governors, quote and unquote, ran into making things that will make them to be ridiculous. You cannot just say wolf when really sin. There's none. And then in any case, those who are a good large number or chunk of the National Assembly members were yesterday governors. So they knew what they did, and they are afraid of those who are there, and are afraid for the future ones. What an irony. So we cannot be subjected to these sentiments and overstretch their emotions and sentiment at the detriment of the larger interests of the nation. Mr. President has done well, and I tell you, send this for any census or opinion poll. One will say without fear of contradiction that the majority of Nigerians will go with this sentiment that you want to eliminate smaller political parties, you want to use other small group interests at the detriment or to measure the larger interests of the society. And I think we should go beyond that. The responsibility of promulgation of laws should be much more enlarged in terms of establishing the real intendment, the real objective, the dreams of what the society should be. It's just an incremental way of what? Creating an evolutionary arrangement where society will continue to be bigger and bigger, stronger and more harmonious, and of course, more promising, more peaceful, and more prosperous by implication.
Senator, just a minute. If I may just remind you of the fact that, you said the governors, the sentiments about the governors is one of the reasons for insisting on some of these provisions. And you've already also alluded to the fact that some of the senators too were once governors, and they knew exactly what the process was and how it's going to play out. So there's a lot of sentiments here. Could that be the reason why, as at yesterday, a good number of senators, a good number of members of the National Assembly who are trying to insist on overriding the president's decline of assent?
You see, it's simple. I do not want whole brief for anybody, and I don't also want to be emotional at the same time. Those who use their offices and impose themselves as popular candidates and use the democratic infrastructure, the resources available to them, and then perpetuated what they did, they are the same people now afraid.
Exactly.
There's nobody outside them. You went to among the congresses, nobody has perpetual or what I call it. There must be a beginning and end of everything. Yeah. So you cannot say you must in perpetuity or perpetually remain relevant on the scene. You come and play your role, give the best you can within the limit of time, and then leave. When the ovation even loudest. Not when you are, what is it that you will give after 2 decades of doing the same thing? Exactly. And you still want to abuse this system that has helped you to give your contribution, if at all you have given any. So I think this nation should not be subjected to the fears, whims, and caprices of those who are once violators or abusers of these privileges. And we want a country and a system that is foolproof, a system that protects the strong and the weak. And any other thing short of a system that, because the whole idea of protecting the weak elements, if we cannot have a system that engender confidence and trust by all and sundry, then let me use this one. Legislative tyranny, then this is democratic tyranny. and then we have to fight against it. And we thank God that the nation has risen to the occasion to support Mr. President, that his views about this bill is absolutely popular.
Well, gentlemen, if I understand the direction of this conversation, I'm not taking the direction of whether there is anything fundamentally wrong with direct primaries, or is it that Nigeria is not ripe yet to embark on such because of lack of all the things that the president has mentioned, that will work against direct primaries. I'm asking this because, Nzenwa, did point out the fact that, look, that perhaps it could be the best way of, choosing candidates at the primary level, but Nigeria may not be in a position to do that now based on our level of democratic experience as of now. And Musa raised a pertinent issue which has to do with the fact that the political parties have their various constitutions, right? And if a constitution of a party says we're going to use direct primaries to elect our candidate, is there anything wrong with that? And I want to get to Uzi to take on this. Political parties in Nigeria have been accused of a lack of internal democracy. And even when they use internal indirect primaries, there are still litigations after candidates must have emerged. And even after elections must have been conducted, there are still litigations. So, sir, is there anything fundamentally wrong with direct primaries? Or are we not, as a nation, we're not yet ripe to, adopt that?
Thank you very much for that question, a very pertinent question. Let us disabuse our minds from certain things that are not factual. Both what you call small or old parties and new parties, almost all the constituents have a choice presently, saying you can use direct or indirect. If you recall, the APC in the last round of general elections 2019, it was contentious. They now said each state should decide the mode it chooses to use. So even within the APC itself, some states use direct, like Lagos. Some states use the delegate system. That was the position of the APC. Now, in the governorship election in Anambra, the most recent governorship election, the APC used direct primaries. I gave you an example of NCP that used direct primaries. So there's really no significant difference between the two, quite honestly, especially in our context. My worry about this particular action of the National Assembly is twofold. One, this was never really an issue in all the public hearings and the engagements it had. We're talking of transmission of results, deployment of technology and other things. So this was not really an issue. It came much later. That's my worry about that. And unfortunately, the searchlight has now turned from other aspects of the bill onto this particular primaries, which was not really the most contentious part of the bill. It was very few people, if any, commented on it. The important thing is to have safeguards, whether it's direct or indirect. Both are subject to abuse. Both are subject to abuse. Now, one of the failings of the National Assembly in this regard, especially with these direct primaries, is that it does not guarantee, I was in the studio and pointed out, it does not guarantee, for example, that there must be a register of voters which should be given to every aspirant cleared by the parties to contest the election. Without that safeguard, that's a danger. That's not in Mr. President's, it's not one of the reasons Mr. President gave for rejecting the bill. I thought, to me, my own personal view, is the most fundamental, because there isn't enough safeguard, whether I use direct or indirect. In a company, before the company goes to the annual general meeting, it closes its register and says every member of the company, every shareholder who, as at this date, was a shareholder, is entitled to attend and vote at general meeting. In general elections, INEC, 30 days to the election, gives each political party a register of voters of everybody entitled to vote at that election. Why does it do so? Because you must look at that, look at the accreditation, and look at those who are entitled to vote. The register is the fundamental, is the foundation of every election. You must know all those who are entitled to vote. You must know when the ballots exceed the number of registered voters, number of accredited voters, and things like that. Without those safeguards, whether you use direct or indirect, you're going to run into problems. And direct primaries has led to confusion and litigations. Indirect has equally done the same thing. And with due respect to the IPAC chair, some of the newer parties had contentious issues that even went to the Supreme Court. Remember, Jerry Garner, for example, was in court with Donald Duke for one of the newer parties, let me not say smaller. Obi Ezekwesili had problems with her own party before 2019 elections. So there's several instances of that. So whether it's direct or indirect, without setting basic safeguards, the main thing is that there should be internal party democracy, whichever mode you choose.
Now, if direct provision of a direct primaries is expunged from this bill, does it now compel all political parties to use an indirect election during the primaries?
No. The extant law, the 2010 Act as amended, says that you have a choice. To choose, parties. Yes, political parties have a choice. That's the only thing. But now, because they say they are abusing indirect, they want to constrain that choice to say by law. And yes, there's a general principle that selection of candidates is within the province of political parties, subject to the national law. Every constitutional political party is not superior to the law. So depending on what the law says, my dear friend talked about Okafor and Onoha. Basically, the province is a domestic province of the parties. But because of abuses, because of a lack of internal party democracy, the constitution of the land has said that the selection of candidates for executive positions and for elections should be in a democratic manner. The constitution of the party must say that. The constitution of Nigeria 1999 says so. So whichever mode, as long as it's democratic, that will be satisfactory. So what the import of what the president has done is to take it back and leave that particular clause 87 as is in the present law, which has always been, let the parties choose whichever way they want.
Mr. Osaze, let's exhaust you a while before you take your leave. Yolanda really wants to leave by sort of just in the next 10 minutes or so. Let's look at it from this point of view. If, out of your experience, let's just explore that. Smaller parties are at the center of this issue at the moment because of the fear that they may be consumed by the bigger parties if this is going to go on. And of course, looking at the other issues of the registration, or rather the register of the political parties which have been deposited with the INEC.
No, the register is not deposited. It's the constitution that's deposited.
The constitution, sorry.
Right.
But the register has to be there for every other political party, to have before that is being conducted. Now, by this, have the smaller political parties out of experience over these years been, playing to the rule than the otherwise?
None of the political parties, big or small, new or old, has a fairly accurate register of voters, and that's the bane of this whole system.
Okay.
They are required to. Several engagements were held between INEC and IPAC and the political parties, saying, let us have your register of voters. It's organic, it changes, admittedly so. And I think one of the speakers is make allusions to the fluidity of membership. Today they're in one party, of course, so, but at a court, you have to have a cut of dates. Who are your members as at this date? These are the people who are entitled to vote. None of the political parties has a credible register. I stand to challenge. Not one. Big or small, new or old, not one.
No, that's unfortunate.
Well, Sunisi, I'd like you to expatiate on some of the points that you raised earlier on, quoting some sections of the Constitution, to back your submission. In terms of political parties' choice of whatever method they want to apply to nominate or elect or select a candidate to represent them. Because many Nigerians have been wondering, why is this issue of direct or indirect election, why is it being put in the front burner? How important is it? The parties are there, they have the constitution, they know what to do. Why are we now debating it nationally? Why is the National Assembly even involved in the issue of deciding whether a party that has its constitution should either use direct or indirect election?
Well, you see, let me, as a practitioner in both fields, that is, I participated in direct and indirect primaries, that is as a politician. I also participated in litigation, both that concerns direct and indirect primaries. Like my learned senior said, there are so many things wrong with the direct primaries. Look, when we had the direct primaries in 2019 in APC, in some of the states, we had a situation whereby a senator claimed to have won the primaries with more than 1 million votes. And at the main election, he was elected by 300,000 votes. So the question is, where were the more than 700,000 members of APC that came out to vote for him at the primaries that could not come out to vote? You know, just the recent election that we had in Anambra, what happened? We said our candidate emerged with about 230,000 votes or something about. What was our vote at the election? Now, like he said, you don't have a verifiable register. Okay, if I'm going into primaries, you know what they normally do is, one, ideally, if you want to go into any election, there must be accreditation, so that when somebody comes and presents his voter's card or membership card, you tick. Maybe you do, if the present Electoral Act, you'll be simultaneously accreditation and voting. Now, at the end of the election, you know that how many people vote, and prior to that, you know how many people are in the register. No, nobody brings that. Just people come and queue up. You now say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you disperse people. Now, with that, what it means that if somebody with 100 people on the queue and the other with 1,000 people, after they disperse, the conductor of the election decided to write the one with 100 people. He said he had 100,000 people. There is nothing to verify that or to put a lie to it. So these are the issue. I always said, as bad as the delegate system is, it is much more better, and it is even for people that are should change, is better for them. It's easier for them to be able to challenge the result of that election, because before going to the election, you know the number of people that are going to vote. And the worry I have is political parties that have failed up to this time to have, with this technology, to have a verifiable register that can be online, that can be verified by anybody, have failed to do that. Where will they get the money to now conduct primaries in more than 1,000 wards? I mean, we should have some statesmanship in our thinking. Like Senator Gada said, the governors today that are abusing their offices, that are thinking because they are governors they can do and undo, they should look at those governors that are senators today that are fighting this. And don't be surprised. Some of the senators some of the members of the National Assembly that are saying, no, we need direct primaries. If they were to become governors tomorrow, you will see them changing position. So why are people forgetting about the oath of office they have taken on the day they assume office, that they are to defend and protect the Constitution of Nigeria, that they are going to do things in accordance with the law, that they will not allow the ill will, affection, or anything to affect their official conduct? Why? Why can't we have laws? Why can't we follow the Constitution? Nobody is indispensable, and nobody can be there in perpetuity. But what will protect you is your ability to do things according to the law, so that tomorrow, when you are not in that position, when you are as powerless as those that are powerless today because you are powerful today, then that law that is put there will be there to protect you. But if you decide to trample upon it today, then tomorrow too, you also cry. So I think, and another important issue is, Nigerians, please, we should learn to stop to be lazy. Look, I just don't understand how the Nigeria, particularly the elite, think that we cannot do anything by ourselves, but we always resort to help of the law. Laws are just written in books. It is the operators of the law. Look, any law that is made, if you don't practice it, it will not give you anything ideal situation. And any law, no matter how ideal you couch it, it is subject to abuse. It is when every citizen decides to play his own role in nation building that will stop that. The Constitution has given everybody a role to play. If the governors are abusing their powers, the legislators are there, are given the power to impeach them. If the legislator refuses to do that, the citizens are given the power to recall the legislator. So everybody should play his role.
Yeah, that should be the ideal thing, really. And we hope Nigerians are listening, political party members and the politicians generally are listening to that. Thank you for that elucidation. Let's go ahead to Leonard Nzewa and then hear your own part. And then we would really want to really ask you about what the situation is at the moment, looking at the reaction of political parties to this issue. When you talk about insecurity as one of the reasons posted or rather postulated by the president in trying to do that. But before you give us the answer to this question or react to this, may we please thank, Oluwole Osaze Uzi for being part of this program. This one we learn to have an engagement at the moment. And Oluwole Osaze Uzi is an election expert and a legal practitioner, former director of voter education and publicity at ANIC. Thank you so much for being part of this program.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Leonard Nzewa, can we hear you react to this now?
Yeah, I can barely hear you. Please, could you just repeat again, because the network is, there's a big glitch.
Okay, put simply, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Yeah, put simply, how would you react to the president's, position on the fact that some of the provisions of the Amendment Act bill really spell doom for the country, talking about complicating the, already insecure situation in the country?
Yeah, let's take the Anambra election for instance. The route to the Anambra election itself and the election itself are what transpired in that particular state. Before the election, my personal position was that the election should be postponed for a period of minimum 2 weeks, maximum of 3 weeks, to create the corridor of peace in that particular state for the election to go ahead. Now, the outcome of that election, when you look at the investment in terms of human resources and financial resources that were committed, was very poor. We had less than 10% of voter turnout, and it's also a function of fear, insecurity, and that's what we said before the election. When you had a group of people that operate like guerrilla, who will come into this space, cause maximum damage, maximum death, and they will retreat. And you have the state with its might on another side, also trying to contain these elements. You create fear, an atmosphere of fear, and that resulted into what we saw in Anambra. And we had very low turnout of low turnout of electorates in that particular election, less than 10%. And that's something we're running away from. We were looking at a situation where we have election in and election out with some level of increase on voter turnout. So yes, security-wise, the Anambra is a very good example why the president will also have to look into that. Beside this particular analysis, we also saw that the number of deaths and the disharmony that occurred in Anambra on account of that election, there were so many deaths. The complete system in Anambra or the South was completely dismantled on account of that election. People were scared. As I speak with you now, I got a report from my party in Imo State that the state is about conducting the state local government election. People are unwilling to go and take the forms to contest for election. Many of them are scared to come out and go and contest for elections. The State Independent Electoral Commission has gone out talking to people to come and take election. People are not ready to do that. So it's also a function of insecurity. And so what we are saying is this: we need to find some solution. We need to get solution around this insecurity in this country. Because if that is not addressed, we might be having a lot of problems with conducting election in this country. So Mr. President is perfectly right in taking that decision. So security concern is a good reason why he now did not assent to that particular bill. But I will also want to state something very clearly. Let us be very, very, very clear about something. The last speaker made a point. He said that a situation where they conduct the primaries. For instance, a political party conducts its primary, and you see overwhelming number of voters who come to vote and declare a particular candidate a winner. Now, when you come to the larger election, you find out that this particular number of voters that have voted, you can't see them even at the national election. You can't see them at the main election. Now, let's take example of what happened in Anambra.
All right, Dr. Nzenwa, we are running out of time, really. You know, and you have also made a very good point there. We want to thank you very much indeed for. Okay, all right. We'll thank you for your submission so far. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation.
Everybody knows the secret to good cooking is that special ingredient. The mothers know. Are you ready? Yes! Let the cooking begin.
Erisco tomato paste. Now we get home, now we get love, now we get children. We spice the world with a meal so great and so healthy. You know we've got your back. Oh, with Erisco, Rigico, Nagico.
Ladies and gentlemen, food is ready.
Food of love.
Mmm.
Tomato paste. Good food for the body. Yum yum for the body.
Erisco Rigico and Nagico tomato paste is made by Erisco Foods Limited, feeding Africans with healthy foods.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Since coming into office in 2015, the Buhari administration has recorded unprecedented achievements in all sectors, especially in the provision of infrastructure, which is the key to economic growth. Never in the history of this country has any other administration done so much with so little. Recall that when this administration came into office, the price of crude oil, which provides for 80% of Nigeria's budgetary revenues and 95% of foreign exchange earning, dropped drastically, thus reducing the amount of resources available to the federal government. In spite of this, the administration has continued apace with massive infrastructure developments.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We have come to the end of another successful year. We wish to appreciate all those who mean so much to us. Our clients, the 3 tiers of government: ministries, departments, and agencies, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties. You are esteemed viewers. Together, we made 2021 great. Together, we shall make 2022 greater. Thank you. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year from all of us at NTA.
Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're talking about Electoral Act Amendment Bill, and then it's a refusal to be accented to by the president and then being sent back to the National Assembly for another, check at it. Senator Abubakar Umar, let's get your perspective generally now on this, as you were just discussing. We're talking about how this very, act, all right, or how this very amendment could go in as an act. But it seems as if the president had just stopped that for you to now look back, as you said earlier on, that you're going to go back to your constituents and they hear from them about what they feel about what the president said and what you've done earlier on. I mean, do you think something is going to come out of that, bearing in mind that you should have done that much earlier before you even sat and agreed on this because you represent the people?
You see, it just, maybe by implication, making me to repeat myself and my learned brother, Musa. You see, it's just the crier. I mean, the National Assembly members assume to be the totality of Nigerians. They just assume, as small as they are, they assume they are the totality of Nigerians. There's no reflection of their opinion in the larger society.
Have there been no reflection in during when these decisions were taken?
Yes,
and
you can hear that there was an observation that even during the public hearing, the issue of this direct or indirect was not even prominent. Okay. Why? Because it is their own assumed, subtle sentiment that since they have the right, they have the pen and the paper, at the appropriate time they will just put inside it and give it a name or give it a section. Otherwise, why will all this go? In fact, the major cries in the National Assembly, even in the Senate, are the former governors. You understand? Not even normal, are the former governors. You make your finding. So why? Because you know what you did. You know the extent of abuse you perpetuated. And you now want protection for what you have implanted. You understand? So that is the irony, and that is the painful part of it.
I'm not cutting you short. When you say are the governors, how so much in greater number are they to override general majority?
No.
How influential would they be to at least even influence other decisions like this?
As small as
fundamental
they are,
as it is.
the National Assembly members, since they are all, they see themselves as the direct creation of their governors, by implication.
Okay.
You understand? And so those governors now, who you just finished your term as a governor, now you become a senator. The governor you left behind will go after you by also exercising those powers you exercised, and then he'll get rid of you easily. This is what we are having. There are some of them who were former governors who installed themselves, who now, who are there are not agreeing with them, and they are easing them out, and they think they can be protected by mere amendment of the Electoral Act. Forgetting the fact that this sentiment is the way and manner you can abuse direct, indirect, is the same manner you can abuse indirect. In fact, the National Assembly they are maybe in their own subconsciousness are trying to imagine which abuse is cheaper and which abuse is more expensive.
And which one is more tolerable?
So invariably, as Nzengwapa said earlier on, he said that we have a combustible negative energy that can be applied, in any form, whether direct or indirect. Yes. I want Sunusi to make this clear. I will discuss that off, camera. The fact that if this bill becomes an act, and if it takes indirect primary as the one enshrined in the act, it's now compelling to all Nigerian political parties to adhere to indirect primary election. Yes. What does the Constitution say about that?
That's one of the worries the president expressed. Like I said, if you check section 222 of the Constitution, which mandate each political party to have a constitution, it clearly says that the Constitution it must contain that the way and manner the leadership and the candidate of that political party are to emerge must be through a democratic means. Okay. The Constitution did not interpret what democratic means is. But then, because of Section 228 of the same Act, which empowers the National Assembly to make laws with respect to the way political parties are governed, which I think in the last amendment they inserted to include primary election. The National Assembly, in their wisdom, think that because this is something that they had wanted to have in 2010 Act, but some consultation made them to defy it. So now they want to bring it because under Section 87 of the present Electoral Act, it gives the parties the right either to conduct direct or indirect primary. I think Section 87 or 34. I just can't remember. Now, direct or indirect primaries is all democratic. Okay, since they are all now, the wisdom of the National Assembly think that no, indirect primaries is not democratic. It's only direct primaries that is democratic. That is why in the present amendment they make it that only direct primaries. What that means is that if the president has assented to this bill, if any political party decide to field a candidate with INEC that has not emerged through a direct primaries, then that candidate, that party can be said not to have a candidate because it has not complied with the provision of the law. So that is where the president is saying it has now limit the right of self-determination of Nigerians who are members of the political party, because it is your freedom to associate which gives you the freedom to belong to a political party, gives you the freedom to canvass for vote for that political party or to aspire for office for that political party, now is being limited by provision of an act of National Assembly. Now, the president has read this issue, and I pray the National Assembly will look at it and call Nigerians to express their opinion. If opinions of Nigerians is in compliance with the provision of Section 222 and Section 228, then they will pass it again by two-thirds majority in the three different legislative days, the first reading, second reading, and third reading. That is what it says. Then after that, maybe it is only when, if they are able to override the veto of the president. If it becomes act, Nigerians still have a right to question the constitutionality of that act in a court of law, because that is where you get the final, whether the extent of the legislative powers of the National Assembly extend to limiting the types of primary, the limiting the way and manner the democratic process of emergence of candidate to come out as provided by Section 222 of the Constitution. Then once the court gives a final verdict, now we come with it. But as at now, like I said, each party is an opinion.
That is why I asked the question in the first place. Now, from what you have said,
yes,
it appears that even if it becomes an act, that someone can also go to court to contest it, to say, look, yes, it's an act, but I have the fundamental right, to adopt any election mode that I want to adopt. Yeah. So what is the essence of the whole thing after all?
Look, people should understand that going to court is part of the democratic process. It's amazing sometimes when people try to say that this law will lead to litigation. No, litigation is part of the democratic process. That is why the judiciary is there. Any law that is passed by National Assembly, assented to by the president, or the National Assembly override his veto, every citizen has the right to go to court. It's part of the democratic process. If the court, because the court is the one that will have final say. When it says, yes, this has conformed with the Constitution, so be it. If it says it has not conformed, so be it, like it did to the Electoral Act 2006, which it says the process of overriding the veto of the president was contrary to the provision of the Constitution. But unfortunately, it said that it will not void it because already an election has been conducted under it. That is the 2007 election. By the pronouncement of the Court of Appeal in National Assembly against the president, that Electoral Act was unconstitutional. But the court says already election has been conducted with it, even though it was passed unconstitutionally, Leaders have emerged, the governors, president, and legislators, so it cannot go to declare it unconstitutional. But it has said that the process that was followed to make it a law, it was not a law.
Lawyers always want us to go to court. Always want us to
They've always insisted on that. Now, litigation is part of the process.
They always like it to appear so that they will have the last say.
Let's hear from Dr. Leonard Izongwa, talking about this very issue of going to court, and then looking at the president's, stand on litigations and transparency in the whole system as being put to him and then being returned back to the National Assembly. We are in the know of the fact that litigations in Nigeria normally take longer time, sometimes retard, processes, stall, a lot of actions in governance and things like that. And I think the president might have been very much aware of that. He's been so much informed about that, and that is why it became one of the reasons for his decline for assent of this Electoral Act. How would you react to Sunusi's, stance on this, and of course, what the president feel about the litigations in this regard?
Thank you very much. It's I do agree wholeheartedly that litigations and judicial adjudications of political matters are part of the democratic process and the way we need to also grow our democracies. But what we have seen in Nigeria is a very creative and also negative means to also atrophy the political system with high level of litigation. That's what we're concerned with. High level of litigations. You find things that ought not to have taken a political party to court. You now have people just take party to court because they want to either seek redress or to make some money from that particular exercise. As I speak with you, there are a club of lawyers whose job in this country now is to look at loopholes when political parties have issues, when they have their primaries, when they have their exercises, all kinds of exercises, and they just move into political parties to court or take politicians to court. So what we're saying is, yes, moderate level of litigation is also good. It helps, it's functional to the political system and its development. But where you have very high level, unbearable level of litigations across, that's where we are very concerned. Let me give you an example for the direct primaries. Two things that are very clear here now. The parties register. They register and members who should be involved in direct primary. I have made this point and I keep making this point. The direct primary is a model which was practiced in the alternate era. And even when it was practiced in the alternate era, there's what they call sortition, which is an element of this direct primaries or direct democracy, as it used to be called. This sortition has limitation. And this limitation is women are not part of the suffrage. Two, if you're not up to 20 years, you will also not be part of this particular process. So it is not in itself, it's not even also itself democratic. Now, we also repeated that across the globe, there is no country where we find 100% direct primary. It is a mix of delegates, collegiates, and direct one. So this mix are the things we're saying. Now, we are not saying that direct primary is an evil thing in itself. Mr. President have looked at it based on consultations widely with different segments of the society. He came up and said, listen, high cost of conducting direct primaries is enormous. He says security challenge of monitoring the election is also there. He also talks about violation of citizens' rights and marginalization of small political parties. Now, in the aspect that has to do with violation of citizens' rights, that's where you're going to have a lot of litigations. For instance, if my political party, the African Action Congress, is conducting its primary, maybe somewhere in Abuja here or somewhere in Yola, and a member of the party who one reason or the other is not directly involved in the conduct of this particular primary or part of the primary, he has a right to go to court.
All right, Dr. Leonard Izongwa, we're not doing this on purpose. We got you short the last time. And this time around again, we are indeed, we apologize for that, but just because we don't have a control of time, otherwise we would have allowed you to continue. What I took away from what you have just said is the fact that we can have a mix of a collegial, direct, and indirect, as the case may be. Thank you indeed for being part of our show this morning. We're sure going to re-invite you again when we have a similar topic in the future. Thank you indeed. Dr. Leonard Nzemwa, rather, is the immediate past IPAC chairman. Thank you once again. Sunusi Musa, your legal practitioner and public affairs analyst. When I become a politician, I will look out for you when I want to go for litigation.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, and Senator Abubakar Omar Kata, we also would like to appreciate your contribution this morning on the program.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a bit of sports now.
Super Eagles do Kelechi Iheanacho and Wilfred Ndidi ended on a losing